then, another CMC episode, and it also features a school of friendship. Will it finally interact with the young six? Of course not. The episode begins with the CMC trying to sneak into the school of friendship, which they apparently haven't seen from the inside as of yet. Why? I mean, even if they aren't allowed to enroll there isn't any reason why they can't enter the building just to get a picture of it or to speak with the main six. It's not like they have some sort of controls there. And we saw last episode that they actually offered tours through the school, so that doesn't make any sense. And speaking of not making any sense, why are they not allowed to enroll precisely? Twilight's reasoning that they already know everything they can teach them is a rather weak explanation at best, because we all know that the CMC still have tons of lessons to learn. To say that they can't learn anything new is like saying that Twilight or any other member of the main six can't learn anything new about friendship as well. We all know that this is not true, and it is a pretty forced reasoning. I mean, I do agree with Twilight's sentiment that they should go to Shirley's school because you learn actually useful things there, and it is approved by the EEA, so a degree from that school actually means something. But it still doesn't make much sense, not to mention that I don't see any reason why they can't take any extra classes after their classes at Shirley's school. Also doesn't helping is a constant comparison of how much better the school of friendship is supposed to be. It's getting a bit old after a while, and even though they do say that Shirley is a good teacher, it just seems a bit insulting considering how they keep complaining about her classes. Thing is, they mostly emphasize how much fun the classes are, like playing football and stuff, and less what they actually learn there. As a result, I have a bit of a hard time to take it seriously as an actual school. So yeah, none of that makes any sense. Still, the Cutima Crusaders try to find ways to get into that school somehow by proving that they still have to learn something about friendship, which takes about half of the episode, and frankly, for the most part it feels like padding. I don't consider these scenes particularly funny, and you could more or less cut them out and nothing of value would be lost. The actual plot starts when they hear a young filly named Cozzyglow crying in front of their clubhouse, who just happens to be a student at Twilight School for Friendship. Since she is struggling with her studies, the CMC decide to help her. And yeah, it suddenly feels like a completely different episode than before. Admittedly, a much better episode though. Now I just want to question the idea behind Cozzy's homework a bit. Sending a child out to help 3 strangers she has never met before just seems like a rather odd idea, even for a friendship school. It's along the lines of No Second Chances, in which Twilight forced Starlight to find a new friend within a day. That's why I think the concept of teaching friendship like that is doomed to fail. The only thing Twilight and Co are doing is forcing socially awkward people into doing something they are not comfortable with without any guidance. And if you're only doing something nice to someone because your grades depends on it, chances are that you're not entirely genuine. What they should be doing is encourage positive behavior, not demand it and correct them if they're doing something wrong. Which is, funnily enough, exactly what the Cutima Crusaders do in this episode. They help Cozzy with her tasks, but they don't do them for her. They help her to learn about friendship mainly by hanging out with her and encouraging Cozzy to do some good deeds along the way. Here and there, Cozzy doesn't think things through or does something wrong, like when she is giving Scootaloo's helmet to help Bonbon without asking Scootaloo first. They aren't angry with her, but correct her and encourage her to do better. This is how Twilight should have handled Starlight in my book. Telling a socially awkward person to get out and make a friend is clearly not the way to go. Now, admittedly, some of that might appear a little bit patronizing, but that is mostly because that Cozzyglow's struggle in itself is rather stupid. We don't know a lot of the content of the test she has to take, but her struggle to memorize the 6 elements of harmony is probably a bit too unbelievable. That are 6 words. The only one I would somewhat understand is generosity, because that's a word I never really used when I learned English in school. So of course it seems a little bit patronizing when the CMC explained this is the element of laughter to her. And the question, who is the princess of friendship, is beyond stupid, considering that Sad Princess is not only a rather big celebrity by now, but also one of her teachers and the principal of said school. The inclusion of that question in a test actually seems rather egocentric of Twilight. And that's also why the big twist of this episode, that being Cozy failing her test and Twilight blaming the CMC for it, doesn't work. It isn't that Twilight assumes that the CMC encouraged her to rebel or disregard school, which, while a bit of a stretch, would be a somewhat reasonable accusation. No, she accuses the CMC of teaching Cozy Glow all the wrong things. Well, let's take a look again at her test, shall we?
What are the 6 elements of harmony? 5 turtlenecks and a cheese grater? Who is the princess of friendship? Your mom?
Okay, admittedly this "your mom" joke made me chuckle, especially since I never expected to hear that in MLP. But comedy aside, these answers should be a very good indicator that Cozy failed the test on purpose. No one would actually believe that these are the right answers. These are answers someone gives who actively refuses to take a test. So either Twilight is a moron for believing that the CMC somehow managed to drill these answers into Cozy's head, or she thinks Cozy Glow is really that stupid and easy to manipulate to believe it, which would make her look even worse. If anything, Twilight should have asked the Cutie Mark Crusaders if they know why Cozy Glow would give such obviously wrong answers and be more worried than angry. Not to mention Twilight, if Cozy Glow actually believes that those are the real answers, don't blame the CMC, your school is obviously doing something wrong. Now regarding Cozy Glow as a character, she is pretty much cuteness incarnated. Her look and the way she speaks makes her appear rather precious. And frankly, while her trouble to learn for the test is a bit hard to believe considering the context of the questions, I think the episode did an overall pretty good job of portraying her as a socially awkward girl who really wants to learn more about friendship. She has a bit of a hard time grasping friendship, as we see when she questions what the CMC would gain from helping her, indicating that she thinks people would only help each other out of self-interest, but quickly accepts their help regardless. She has a bit of trouble approaching people, which is why she has trouble helping them even if she wants to at first, but later on she goes out of her way to get Pip's kite back, so there is some improvement. She makes small mistakes along the way, but they are rather believable. I think the scene in Fluttershy's house, where she tried to hide the mess she made, is a pretty good example. I mean, let's face it, I'm pretty sure every one of us did something similar at some point, and Apple Bloom pointing out this is not in the spirit of honesty is actually a somewhat decent teaching method. She makes those mistakes, but when the CMC correct her, she appreciates their criticism and learns from it. And as soon as she noticed that she screwed up by failing the test, she immediately went to Starlight and confessed, making amends. So yeah, I think she works surprisingly well and there's some potential for her in future episodes. Though one thing I have to mention is the fact that it immediately became somewhat of a meme to label her as evil. And it is easy to see why. There is something a little bit off about her. She is a bit too cute, if you understand what I mean. She is using words like girly, for example. So some think she is a bit too pure to be true and that it is all an act. A lot of people compare her appearance to Baby Doll from Batman the Animated Series or Dala Dimple from Cats Don't Dance, just to name a few examples. And it's pretty much it. Especially older viewers have some expectation when it comes to certain types of plot, and this episode is pretty much structured like a story in which the sweet girl is revealed to only using the Crusaders for her own gain, either by letting them do all the work for her, which ends up with her really failing the test because she didn't actually learn anything, or failing the test on purpose so she can blame it on them. There are other scenes that somewhat gives that impression, like when a bunny conveniently ate all of her carrots so the CMC shares their food with her, or when she asks them to help her with her studies for the test even though she got straight A's for her homework. It somewhat seems like she's just taking advantage of the Crusaders. And perhaps the biggest red flag, she confuses the element of magic with control, which funnily enough is something pre-Redemption Sunset Shimmer used it for. And one thing hardly anyone seems to bring up is her cutie mark. Most of the time a cutie mark does somewhat relate to the name of its owner, but Cozy Glow's cutie mark appears to be a red tower, or most likely a rook, like the chess piece. Considering that scheming people that manipulate others are often called chess masters, it does give the indication that she might be up to something. After all, Starlight named her scheme devious, though going by that logic, it is also noteworthy that if this really were true, her cutie mark is just a rook, not the king. So while the rook is a rather versatile and powerful figure, it is not the most important piece. It could indicate that someone else is pulling the strings. Some people seem to assume that she is somehow connected to Naysay, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what future episodes have in store for us, because I'm pretty sure that she was rather genuine in this episode. Well, and since I just mentioned her, Starlight was probably the best part of this episode. Her scene with Cozy Glow was just hilarious. Well, this episode made me notice something. I think the Cutie Mark Crusaders and Starlight Glimmer have never actually interacted on screen before. Even in this episode, when she offered to help Twilight with the Cutie Mark Crusaders, she only speaks with Twily, not the Crusaders. Only in the last scene they actually exchanged a few lines with each other. Just something curious I noticed. Also, when I first learned that Starlight is the guidance counselor of the school friendship, I couldn't take it quite seriously considering her track record. She seemed like the last person I would give that job. The fact that the show pointed out that she basically does nothing in the school of friendship therefore somewhat amused me. Like Twilight gave her that position because she knew that she can't cause any harm there. But to be fair, she did a rather good job in this episode, even if there were some slip-ups, because she isn't really used to it. Not to mention that she was seemingly impressed by Cozy Glow's devious scheme. That's something I like about Starlight. You still see parts of her old self from time to time, whereas Sunset Shimmer, for example, seems like a completely different person since her redemption. Also something I noticed the other day, Starlight Glimmer is the only adult in cartoon history who successfully handled a bully situation by simply talking. Sure, she did it to alter the timeline, but if we consider this, she's probably overqualified for the job. Well, and then there is the ending. Now again, I think that the idea that the CMC can't learn anything at the School of Friendship is rather stupid, but making them officially tutors does make some sense, because from what I have seen this season, they are better teachers than the entirety of the main six, except maybe Fluttershy. And maybe Spy, because I appreciate a Dead Poets Society joke when I see it. Also, that Chancellor Puddinghead? Okay. Well, whatever, it's time to wrap things up. Max Furford is overall alright. The setup seems weirdly stupid. The content of what they seemingly teach at Twilight's friendship school seems way too basic to believe that anyone would have any trouble with it, making the Cutie Mark Crusaders explain the elements of harmony to Cozy seem a little bit condescending for her and the audience. The idea that the CMC wouldn't learn anything at the School of Friendship also seems rather forced, and the first half of the episode of them trying to get into the school is almost cringeworthy. The second half of the episode almost feels like an entirely different episode, but it has some very funny jokes, and I think beside her inability to memorize the 6 elements of harmony, Cozy Glow is a rather enjoyable character. The biggest problem is that Twilight was seemingly hit with the idiot stick multiple times, but overall, I think it was a pretty enjoyable episode. But what about you? Did you like this episode? Anything that bothered you? What are your thoughts on Cozy Glow? Let me know in the comments below. I am Tricky Fox. Stay foxy.
Sly as a fox, you got me under your spell. But you know I'll never tell that I know you know so well. Sometimes